Good afternoon and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View this afternoon. Brendan Rodgers has spoken to the media, as did Sinisalo today. And it was an interesting conversation with Sinisalo, obviously talking about the game last weekend. And all the stuff that was thrown at him, and the fact that Sinisalo did have more than just bottles chucked at him. It's all sorts chucked at him. And he addressed that in the media today. And then they basically passed it over to Ibrox and said that they need to deal with that in-house as far as Celtic will move on from it. We do need to move on from it, but it is something that needs addressed. I think that netting, and personally I think that netting needs to be put up behind the goals at Ibrox to protect our keepers. Sinisalo did go on about the fact that Joe Hart was hit with items, and he's not been the first and he won't be the last to be hit with stuff by the Ibrox crowd. But then we move on from that, because Brendan Rodgers spoke to the media, and it was an interesting one from Brendan today. He doesn't generally get into transfer speculation, but first of all, we need to talk about the B team. Brendan Rodgers was asked about the quality of the youth coming through. With no less than 3 players from the youth team leaving Celtic this summer, Brendan Rodgers did say that it's going to take a few years for Celtic to produce any talent for the first team. That's devastating. That's devastating. He then went on to reiterate players that he's coached in the past that have stuck to the plan. He talked about Ryan Christie, who went to Aberdeen on loan from Celtic after we bought him from Ross County, remember? And he came back a better player, and he walked straight into the first team. And he spoke about a player when he was at Swansea or Leicester. He spoke about a player that he had then that he put out on loan for 2 seasons. And the interesting part about this is obviously he was talking about the B team players at the time coming through, and he talks about football education. He spoke about it before, football education. Players these days aren't willing to go through a football education, and he spoke about the players that have in the past under him and how they've become a success and they've went on to higher levels. He then spoke about Sinisalo, which was interesting, because if Kasper Schmeichel hadn't been injured this season, Sinisalo would have been going out on loan next season. Now, I think that Celtic may still put Sinisalo out on loan for first team experience next season. Celtic have been making moves to bring back a young keeper that is currently at Aberdeen. I think that will still go through. I think if Celtic get that deal to go through, he will be our number 2 goalkeeper next season, and Sinisalo will go out on loan, because we've got Kasper Schmeichel for next year. And Brendan Rodgers did explain that the long-term plan was always to have Sinisalo as our number 1 goalkeeper, and they were going to have a choice this summer, as it stood, to get him out, get some game time, and just keep the quality in there. And they've been pleasantly surprised, and as we all have. So it's going to be an interesting one to see if Sinisalo is one that goes out on loan this summer. Brendan Rodgers then was asked the question at the end. Yep. The question that he's asked all the time. The Greg Taylor question, and that ended the interview, didn't it? Greg Taylor will be leaving Celtic this summer. He will not be signing a new contract. He will leave. Brendan Rodgers says there's no change on it. Brendan spoke about it before, and he says that when this happens, the player leaves the club. It's as simple as that. He spoke about other players that could potentially leave. He was asked the Rio Hatate question that we spoke about in this morning's video. Apologies for this morning's video, actually. There wasn't a live because I was fucking hungover, I'll be honest with you. I was out till my brother flew in last night and we just went straight to the pub. I was just one of those nights. I was dying. Absolutely dying. It's not often I do that, but so I just recorded a video later on when I woke up. Still rough yet. But anyway, he was asked the Rio Hatate question, and he says that people may look at Rio Hatate and the fact that he's 27-year-old and saying, well, why hasn't he progressed quicker? Why hasn't... You've got to remember that Rio come into the game later in his career, at age-wise. And he said that Rio isn't an underrated player. He's a fantastic player. I still stand by the fact that Rio Hatate will be sold this summer. Rio Hatate said in the past two... We're repeating ourselves here, but Rio Hatate will be one of the players that does go this summer. It's going to be a summer of a massive clear out at Celtic. Brendan Rodgers can talk about it being a natural progression of players. Some of our top players will be targeted by other clubs and transfer fees may come in for them. And then Brendan says, look, there's players at the club that may want to leave to when we get more game time. He said that's natural and it's good. And it's good because we can progress as a club. We can progress as a club. He's not been asked about a contract extension for himself as yet, Brendan, but this is a massive, massive summer for Celtic Football Club. The fact is, we all know the players that will leave this summer. Pretty much. I mean, Brendan did say as well, he reiterated, if the squad was to stay the same, he thinks that we need to bring 3 quality players in. 3 quality players in. And that's just to make the squad better. Now, if he's thinking we need to bring in 3 to make the squad better, if there's going to be 5 or 6 players leaving, you're going to have to replace those players as well. Hence the reason he was asked about the B team. The B team does not have that conveyor belt of players. It's sad that he thinks that the quality isn't there in the B team. The quality isn't there. He spoke about the Glasgow Derby game with the B team, and he said he was disappointed. You could see it on his face. You could see it with the pictures and the TV pictures that you've seen of Brendan and John Kennedy at the game. They weren't impressed at all. It's a big, big thing that the B team is in such a mess it is in. And then that took him to the next question, obviously, with the pathway manager. Yes, the pathway manager. Darren O'Dean, the pathway manager. That's working out well, isn't it? But he did have a conversation with Darren regards the Swansea vacancy. It's a coaching role at Swansea with the potential to maybe managing them one day. And he says we'll wait and see what happens with that if anything comes off with that one. So there's going to be big changes at Celtic this summer. Again, there's going to be massive changes. It's going to be an interesting summer for transfers in and out. But then there's the game tomorrow. I'm not even going to try and predict a team for the game tomorrow. I'm not even going to try and predict a team. Let's say good afternoon to everyone in the chat this afternoon. It is the One Celtic Fans View, where we've tried to get as many views of the people watching the videos as possible. Simple. Alright, what's the first colour? Tamak's in the house, Glasgow's green and white, Celtic girl, lanky, not really Celtic related, but my boy's pal might make his debut for Partick Thistle. His name is Liam Dolan, he's a centre-back. Well, talking about younger players, a certain younger player I know scored a header against Celtic last night. Yes, he scored against Celtic last night. I think it was the under-18s that were the Hearts team were playing, and they won 3-0. I've been telling you about this young lad. He's a player. Anyway, everyone's saying best of luck to Lanky's. His boys pal. Danny Cassie's in the house. Even Dan, Mike Powers is in the house. It's on Paramount in the USA. Tune in. Talk about the Celtic game tomorrow. That's on Paramount TV, Paramount Plus in the USA. If you've got a Fire Stick, go into Paramount Plus or just go into Celtic TV. Although Celtic TV's rank, isn't it? Wee Liam is 16 and he's been at Partick since he was 8. Ex-Celtic player Mark Wilson rates him highly. It's good to see the wee man coming through. It's good that there is a lot of good youth players coming through Scottish football, because I think that there's been a lull over the last couple of years, 2 or 3 years. I think there's been a lull of real good talent coming through in Scotland. So yeah, big shout out to wee Liam. Big Des says that Sinisala was class talking about the missiles. Yeah, he was, and he was very, very to the point. The fact that, what if something hits him in the eye and it's a career-ending strike? They're only doing their job. And it's like, Would you like it if somebody... Do you know what I would like to do? Is like just go into the work of these Huns and just start throwing stuff at them and see them greet in the corner. What are you doing? I'm going to get a police onto you. I'm getting a police onto you, you fucking fiend bastard. Yeah, I would just like to see that, because it's uncalled for when you're at your work to be and it happens at that ground all the time, but that's enough about them, because they're irrelevant. They are irrelevant. They are going to win nothing, they're going to do nothing, and even when they get taken over, they're still going to be nothing. So let's move on from them. Keep saying it, Lanky, keep saying it. It says, the point wasting 20 minutes to do Barrowfield, especially when we're letting youth players leave, but we know it's not for the youth, it's for the females team. I think it's for both, Lanky, and I think that sometimes you need to put in really good facilities to make things better. Sometimes you need to take a couple of steps backwards and be taking a step backwards. Maybe it is the case of, let's spend 20 million on doing up the facility at Barrowfield. Let's give them a training complex and a place where they can play their home matches, even though they've said they're not going to play their home matches. But let's give them something so they know that they're at a big club, and they know that when the transition from the youth team to the B team, and then ultimately get a sniff of the first team experience, a couple of games, and then go out on loan to another team to progress even further. And I think the problem being is Celtic do not want to pay players X amount of money to come through the system, go out on loan, for the potential to be there. And I think that's where the club is struggling at the moment. It doesn't help when you've got clubs down south that will pay these young guys 10 grand a week for doing nothing and achieving nothing in the game. There's lots of players in the modern game. I mean, I still think it's unbelievable that we've got a player that's on 60 grand a week. He's not worth 60 grand a week. And we've got him on loan, thankfully. But we are the 55 times Scottish champions. Yes, we are 55 times Scottish champions, and the talk will be all about us. Mike Power says Sinisalo ready for full professional, mature young man. It is that. Danny Cassie says we're going for 56 and we'll win the treble next year as well. Interesting. I think that can we do back-to-back trebles this time under Brendan Rodgers? Let's get this season over and done with first. There's a whole summer of transfer speculation to talk about over the summer before we even think about getting back to league business. And once we get back to league business, we need to qualify for the Champions League, and that's more important. Mikey says the facilities at Barrowfield had to be upgraded. They haven't really spent any money on them since the days of Jock Stein. Yeah, they hadn't. I mean, they were still, at one point, they were still changing in the Celtic Social Club, weren't they? Baz, the hand of God, we have the hands of Des. Baz has the hand of God, we have the hands of Des. There we go. I'm not staying on long today. How many players do we really need? Brendan Rodgers says talent has never been in doubt. Consistency, performances, other questions of Rio Hitati, as he was speaking about transfer potentials this summer. Brendan Rodgers did say, he says, look, there's players that have done well at the club this season, and no doubt they will get some transfer activity around them. People will make inquiries. Didn't come out as much as say that, but he says it's natural in football, and says there'll be a natural progression with players that maybe think that they're not getting enough game time and they will want to move on this summer. He spoke about David Turnbull and another player, but we've spoken about that earlier. So I'm not even going to talk about the squad because Brendan Rodgers says there's going to be loads of changes over the next couple of games. So what do you think the score will be? The score this weekend. I used to drink... put it this way, we should sell Rio with 3 years left on his deal. I've said that for... He's going to be sold this summer. He's going to be sold. I stand by it. I've said that all season. When we turned down 10 million for him last summer, at the end of the transfer window, and you've got to remember again, and I mean I feel like I'm repeating myself here, but he came out again when he was in Japan last summer, said I want to play in the top 5 league. If the Italians come in for him, he'll turn around and say he wants to leave. It's as simple as that. James Smith is first in. He's going to go 4-0 Celtic. 4-0 Celtic tomorrow. Will it be that kind of high-scoring game? Scotty Boy's going for 4-0 Celtic. Johnny Kenny to score. Will Johnny Kenny start tomorrow? And will Sinisalo start? Even though Kasper Schmeichel is back in the squad, they're looking after his shoulder. Another player with a shoulder issue. What is it with Celtic and players and shoulder issues? I think Sinisalo will keep his place in the team. And the scoreline, I think it's going to be tight. I think it could be maybe a 2-0 or a 2-1. I'll be perfectly honest. I'm not too sure. We'll need to see what the team is tomorrow. We need to see what the team is. And we will be going live an hour and a half before the game tomorrow, as always, to see the team as it comes out live. James Smith says 4-0. 4-0 to the boys. Oofed. Scotty says there's no players transitioning from the B team, etc. The first team, more youngsters from other teams, less we hear, means that they're doing the job correct. The proof's in the years since there's been any come through. Yeah, I think I think Brendan Rodgers is, to coin a Rangers phrase, disappointed with the standard of the B team players. Could there be a change in coaching staff with the B team? Because let's face it, the guys that we've got in the coaching staff, they weren't prolific players, but they might be good coaches. They're Celtic men, but sometimes that's not good. 20 million and Rio can go. I think Celtic will take 15 million for him. And I think 15 million would be cracking a bit of cash, but we'll wait and see. Maybe we will try and get 20 million. Scotty Boy says 4-0 Celtic. James Clark says 3-1 Celtic. Tommy55 says 2-0 Celtic. Lanky's going to come out with the team though. He says Sinisalo, Ralston, Mark Robsey, Scales, Taylor, Callum McGregor, Paolo with the stitches under his eye. Engels, Forrest, Ida and Yang is the team that he says will start tomorrow. It gives me we talk about squad rotation and things, and when you think back to the Falkirk game at the beginning of the season, and Brendan made a lot of changes just to try it out in the cup, and then shot himself at half time and got all the first team players on because we were playing rubbish. Like he says, the B team don't have a decent competition to play against, so how can they develop? This is true. I think that going down, the whole reason they're making the lower league thing was to get them playing against men and trying to get them progress that way. But that's not the be all and end all for a team, for a player to progress. It comes down to the coaching staff, to be honest. It does come down to the coaching, if you ask me. And unusual home result, says Big Des. He's going for 5-0. Link is going for 3-1 tomorrow. Tommy55 is going for 2-0. Popcat says, I like Sinisalo's interview. There was a ton of shit thrown at him, not just a single bottle. The Huns claimed, shameful. Yep. Don't know about. Talk about a pub. Big Des says, thumbs up. Jim McClarty is in the house. He said, I think Celtic will be up for it. Baz, Sinisalo will definitely play, but I think the quicker we get new players in, the better, and get them bedded in. It was interesting that Brendan Rodgers also said that, look, Nicholson and Chris Mackay will be sitting down with players' agents over the next couple of months. I'd be doing it in the next couple of weeks. There's not even a month to the end of the season. Get the conversation started now before the transfer window opens, so that we know where we are. Obviously Brendan will know the players that want to leave at this time of the season. You have the conversations, as any old school manager will tell you. I mean, they know the players that have the little grumblings at training about not getting game time, and the gaffer will talk to him and say, look, gaffer, I'm not getting enough game time, I think I might move on this summer. If that's what you want, lad, that's just perfectly fine. You do what's right for your career. Brendan will say, do you do what's right for you? And if you feel that you need to move to play more football, I'm perfectly happy with that. I can understand that. It's just unfortunate at a big club like Celtic. Sometimes you've got to have players that are just in backup. But if you feel you need to move on, so be it. I think it could be seven players, turnover of 7 players this summer. But anyway. Max Lanky says that Martin Orowski has performed well when he's been called upon. Will he stay in the summer? He's a player that was brought in for 4.3 million. I think that he could be one to go. I watched the 6 players video. It looks all right. We never do transfers quickly. It's our Achilles heel. It is, Scotty boy. You're bang on right. I look at other clubs, and I mean, you look at the likes of Man United. I mean, they're doing transfer stuff already, starting to get stuff in, and I just think that there was only one good thing that came from having Ange Postecoglou as manager, is he liked to get everything done really quick. And I think he kind of forced that. And he knew, and he identified the players that he wanted way in advance. There was no pissing about. And we seem to have went backwards. And that my only fear is, I mean, I've spoken about it before, it's back down Lawwell territory, the way that the club has been run. And the lackadaisical approach to transfers. Surely Brendan will play some youngsters tomorrow. No, he's not going to play youngsters. He'll play fringe players for the first team. He's not impressed with the youth players. He's not impressed at all. That's what I took from the interview today. He's just not impressed with the quality of the team. He said, look, it'll take a few years. Brendan's exact words when he was asked about players coming through like Callum McGregor, James Forrest, Kieran Tierney. He spoke about is there the next. He was asked the question: is there next lot of players coming through? And Brendan Rodgers said it's going to be a few years. You know, that says to me that he's not happy with the quality of the players. But then it does come down to the coaching. Baz, just seen you were doing alive, enjoying the Scottish sunshine. Get Maida contract extended. But I think we'll sell him in the summer. I think that there'll be 2 big sales this summer, and I think it's possibly going to be Rio Hatate and either Dyson Maida or Nico Kuhn. That's what I think. I would start Bernardo tomorrow, even though he's got the stitches just under his eye, because he got 5 stitches. Jumping up for a header in training. Easy 50 million worth of talent incoming, says Big Des. Will Celtic spend that kind of money this summer? Scotty Boy says they need a full pre-season, the new players learn their style before the playoffs for the Champions League. Yes, they do. I've said that. Brendan Rodgers has said it before. It'd still be interesting to know where Celtic are going this summer. We know 2 games that they're playing, so there's a 10-day period that they haven't come out and said. Too busy trying to sell season tickets just yet, aren't they? But anyway, we move on from that. Right, I've done that. Celtic have announced a special load of events. Celtic announced special events ahead of the homecoming against Hibs this weekend. Young impaired mascots will lead the team onto it. The guide dog as well. The 10-second challenge. Disabled support liaisons officer Alex Dobbin said, at Celtic we believe football is for all. It's vital we continue to improve both physical and sensory barriers to ensure everyone, regardless of their ability, can experience the magic of a live match at Celtic Park. Saturday is about visibility, celebration and commitment. We're proud to shine that light on our incredible fans with disabilities. Fair play to Celtic for doing that. It's something that I've done quite a lot for over the years, and that comes from my dad. My dad done quite a lot for charity for stuff over his time as a entertainer. Callum McGregor will be returning to the park tomorrow is champions again. Ole ole. Back to Celtic Park as 55 times Scottish champions. Full out Celtic Park. 3 o'clock. It's not on the telly. You need to watch it somewhere else. I'll be going to the pub. Let's get some comments in before we finish up, because we've been on for 24 minutes. Lanky says, I would play Paolo. We're missing some creativity in the midfield. And Paolo's the best option. Is he better than Rio Hatate? There's one for you. There's one. Is he better than Rio Hatate? I think Paolo will get the nod, because you want to make sure that he knows that he's going to be the main man in midfield. What about the price of the strips, Baz? It's a joke. Yeah, yes it is. Especially if you have a few kids. Adidas are is it Celtic or is it Adidas that's forcing the issue? It's the same all around the world. It's just ridiculous, man. Paolo came on the other day and was pretty good. Shame he doesn't get more game time the next 3 games. That's what we should be doing. That will motivate others for the final. I think Paolo will know, and players around the midfield will know that there's a position coming up this summer. And it's whether they can grab the balls by the fucking... Anyway. Baz, you need to change the side screen. It's going for 56. Not even changing that. We're 55 Scottish champions as it stands. Lol. We need something done about those Hun bastards throwing things. About 30 things were thrown at Sinisalo. Yeah. Yep. How great would the team have been this season if O'Reilly hadn't left? There's no use talking about ifs and buts. Celtic, the way that the club is run, I think we've been lucky over this 4-year period that we've managed to keep so many top quality players together, especially ones that aren't from Scotland. When you look at the basis of the team, it is still an Ange Postecoglou team. But having Rio Hatate at the club for 4 years, having Dyson Maeda at the club for 4 years so far, there's not many foreign players that have got a bit of quality about them last at Celtic that long. They're usually sold for a high amount of cash. It's going to be an interesting summer, because Brendan Rodgers said, look, whatever happens this summer, there's going to be a natural movement of players, but we hope to come back before the end of the window. And that's fucking weird. I just shook my head and I was like, you know what's going to happen? We're going to go somewhere on tour. We're going to go somewhere on tour, and Brendan Rodgers is going to be saying, a fucking threadbare squad here. My fear is we go somewhere on tour in July and there's 6 players already left. 6 players already left the club. First team players. And you're going to go, who the fuck's the subs? We're going to be bringing on young guys that are 16-year-old and not going to get anywhere near the team. Anyway, I missed the Umbros tops. When their football tops were the best. We got Engels with the Matto money, with enough change to cover Adamida. This is true, Mo. It is true. Evening Kaiser. I'm just leaving in 3 minutes. Buy Lennon. Will we buy Lennon? Celtic have done okay without him. O'Reilly was good, but Engels is better. Oh, that's a comment, John. That's a comment. If I had longer, I would have done a poll about that. Might do a poll about that some other time. Is Arne Engels better than Matt O'Reilly? Really? Matt O'Reilly gave us about 20 odd goals last season or something, wasn't it? Anyway, right, that's me done and dusted for today. Make sure you join us at 9 o'clock Celtic Park time tomorrow, where we will do a little bit of an update, and hopefully there might be even a few stories going around about certain players that might be wanting to leave. Greg Taylor is leaving the building at the end of the season, and it could be a summer of massive change at Celtic, with a turnover of around about 7 players out, 7 players in. Anyway, on that note, have an absolutely fantastic day, Celtic fans, wherever you are, all around the world. I'm away with my brother to get... I'm not getting drunk tonight because there's football tomorrow. Better not get drunk tonight. I notice you've had fantastic weather back home. Missy sent me some pictures from